All right, here we are. We're live on 21st Century HR. I'm your host, Lars Schmidt, and I am joined by my good friend, the omnipresent Bill Boorman. Bill, how are you, brother?
That's me. Hi,
Let's
Lars.
just figure it in.
Yeah, can I just start by saying I'm really disappointed with your new hairdo and clean shaven look. I thought you looked far cooler
Yeah,
previously.
I can't pull off a Boorman, man. I tried.
Yeah,
I mean, look, let's be honest. We're gonna have time. I can try again. I'm sure I will. But
yeah, go for the proper COVID look.
yeah, it's funny. Like that was the longest I'd ever let it go. It was probably 2 months. Um,
Yeah.
and I was digging it. I was enjoying brushing it. It was a thing. And then
So you're staying locked down. You're not going out armed protesting and complaining or any stuff like that.
yeah. I think I'll lean on scientists and trust their advice. I mean, look, we
Yeah,
have what
fake
we need
news.
here. I mean,
Fake news.
yeah,
You're fake news, Lars Schmidt.
Yeah, I mean, look, people, protesting is patriotic. I have no issues with protesting. I do have issues with people playing cosplay and bringing long guns to
Yeah,
state assemblies to try to intimidate people. I think that's bullshit and
yeah,
cowardly.
indeed. I'm
Yeah.
with you, brother.
So tell me about you, man. How is you're sheltering in London? You've got a lot going on, man. Let's just start there with
No,
general.
I live just outside London. So I'm about 40 minutes outside London.
Okay.
But close enough to London. So I live in a small town, smallish town, very much like a lot of towns in the country. Region. I live in a village, but close by is a town. Reasonable sized population. Very typical rural kind of town.
Got it. And so what is like your setup there? What's your situation for folks that aren't familiar?
Right. So what's my setup? So professionally, or what I'm doing with my time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess more so. Let's talk about just like sheltering. Like since this
I
has
seem
hit,
to have lost.
yeah. Let's cover
Yeah.
sheltering first. Like as you're sheltering, like what is your
Yeah.
what is your setup in your
What,
village?
what am I doing? So I'm
Yes.
I'm I'm kind of very Boorman way. I'm doing the opposite of everybody else, really. So I've been out every day. I got involved in a project round about Christmas, which is for feeding rough sleepers. About 8.5 weeks ago, I was asked to take over the breakfast, which is what we did traditionally, which was delivering breakfast to 15, 20 people where they sleep every morning, giving them a bit of dignity and coffee, um, and delivering breakfast. And then that's kind of accelerated really quickly because I took on that duty primarily because conferences had finished for me with COVID-19 and stuff. Everything was getting cancelled. So I had the time to do it. I said, right, I'll do this for 2 weeks. That was kind of not coming up for 9 weeks ago. And then the soup kitchen started, all the soup kitchens closed. There was the social gathering issues and all the rest of it. So we took on dinners as well. So doing dinner before some of the rough sleepers went into hotels, we went up to catering for about 75 a day. That's now at kind of a more manageable 40. Somebody else is doing breakfast. I do dinners. So my average day is sourcing stuff to cooking, putting into heat so it can be distributed and stay hot for 2 or 3 hours, and then driving out. Complications, you can't have a soup kitchen, so you have to deliver to where people sleep or gather. So I do about 30 stops. It takes about 4 hours or so. And about 30 stops where we stop and deliver food and lots of other things, like people need tents, socks, underwear, hats, gloves, just general stuff that they need for living, particularly depending on what the weather's doing, like sleeping bags, all that kind of thing. So, and that's all self-funded. So I've also been going out and I've discovered the power of network, actually, really more time than ever before.
Yeah.
In that it's my network that provides money. It's my network that provides every time I put something up and say I need sleeping bags or I need jogging bottoms or I need half of it coming from America, which is kind of amazing, really, I think, given the distance and different things. My friends have always responded. I've got to say, I've never felt, in terms of the term Facebook friend, that's been that's never been truer for me than it is at this moment in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, for listeners and viewers who aren't connected with Bill on Facebook, I mean, literally every week, Bill will pop in and say, "Hey, I need X, I need Y," and then the next week he'll be taking pictures of boxes of X or Y. It's been incredible to watch. I mean, how does that? That's got to make you feel pretty amazing.
Names, by the way, they just arrive.
Yeah,
so it's not like people looking for the glory of a post saying thank you to whoever. This stuff is just arriving.
Yep.
And I'm having people contact me who said, right, well, we're not at the office. We put aside £200, $200 for whatever you need. Just tell us and you need it. And those people know who they are, and it's astounding, man.
I mean, I think what it is, and you probably, I know you're a humble guy, so this isn't probably a conversation you'd have with yourself, certainly not out loud, but I think that the goodwill that you've built in the industry and through the communities, and I mean, your community building, focus has gone back more than a decade, right? And I think that you've had a profound impact on a lot of people in our field all around the world, right? So it's not surprising to me that stuff's coming from the U.S., even though that's a heavy shipping logistics endeavor. I think that you've
I'm thankful to I think I've made Bezos his trillion because most of it comes through Amazon, right? So logistically we can do it now with technology. I tell you what I think the fundamental thing is, and I think this is really important. People are inherently good. You get some exceptions to that, and they're the people that we focus on, but generally people are inherently good. So if you can help someone in a very practical way, you will do that. And some of you will go above and beyond and out of your way to do that. So when you're asked and you can see a means of helping, so you might be sitting in Washington, I forgot where it is, but remember roughly Washington. So you may be sitting at home and you're thinking, I'd really like to help Bill with that because I'm following the story, but I don't have a means of doing that. I can't physically go out and help him and give out food and that kind of stuff because we're thousands of miles apart. But if you have an opportunity to do something which you feel is going to help immediately, then you'll do that. And sometimes that's cash, sometimes that's donations, sometimes it's as important as personal messages which just say, "Hey, brother, I'm or call or whatever it is, saying, 'Hey, brother, I'm with you. I'm with you on this journey, whatever's going on.'" So I think people want to help people. I think they want to help their fellow man. They really want to do that. They just don't have the means and I'm actually not any different. So I consider what COVID has given me, if I look back on this whole COVID journey, if you want to call it that, it's just given me back the only thing I don't have in my life, right? So I feel pretty complete in all the things that I have around me, but I don't have time.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to help a community in a sustained way, like go and practically help frontline rough sleepers, I can't really do that. The only things I've been able to historically do is some fundraising and some projects and ideas and use my network in that way and use some of my social media skills or whatever. But this has given me back time. I would normally be at conferences, right? So, and I'm not a guy who went to university and then did a year out helping orphans in Romania or having any of those experiences. And I never felt it, and I admired those people, but I never felt it was something that was going to come to me. That my help would always be in a different way because I have a business to run, a family to feed, blah, blah, blah. Same as all of us. So the time needed wasn't available to me on a consistent basis, other than can you help on a Sunday, which I did, and, which is what I was doing before. Can you help on a Sunday or whatever? So I really see this, that what COVID has given me is the opportunity of time and the privilege to serve, right? I don't want that to sound kind of evangelical, but I really passionately feel that this has been a unique and very fortunate time that I've been able to do something that was missing in my life. And probably it will never happen again. This will finish. I'll go back to speaking at conferences and doing the stuff that I do, and there won't be a need for it because people will have access to food again and all that kind of stuff. So I view this as kind of a privilege of time, and it's solving a nagging thing in me, which I never thought was there. So it's really changed my whole, because when could I actually do it and give the time that's needed and do it in an efficient way, in any other time? I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, look, you've always been somebody who's needed to invest in something, and a lot of that was invest your energy, your passion, your ideas. I think that's still happening. You're finding a new outlet for it. And I'm curious, like, you probably have a ton of stories from the experience so far. What stands out to you the most? Like when you reflect back at, your time doing breakfast, transitioning to dinner, everything that's happening, what's a story that really stands out to you?
There's a million of those. So the two things that really stand out is really how the learning curve has had to change from COVID-19. One thing that really stands out to me is having a conversation with somebody about, without going into too much detail about it, that all the doctors had closed and they needed to access a methadone subscription, a recovering addict. And I was basically having to say, look, give me an hour and I'll try and resolve this. And this is a new world for me. I deal with employer brands and job rec and technology and stuff, right? And we're having this conversation underneath a shopping centre, with someone in a sleeping bag. And I had to use all of my networking nous to contact some people and say, right, how can we solve this problem? Because they were basically saying, look, if I can't solve that in a problem, if I can't get hold of methadone, there's only one alternative to that. And getting hold of that is much easier. And that puts me then back in that cycle which people experience. So, and I managed to fix that. I managed to get hold of some people, friend and da-da-da, and get hold of someone who could access the records, the right script, and get it dealt with. So there's lots of those moments which are instants. The other thing that really stands out sometimes is the humor and happiness. Today's one of the older guy's birthdays. Is his birthday on the street, and we kind of the charity makes cake and tries to do that kind of thing as much as we can. And I was speaking to him yesterday. I said, right, well, what do you want for your birthday? And he turned around to me and said, what do you buy for the man who has nothing? And just the way that it came out, it's just like I have those moments and those kind of, those lines from people. This kind of, I've learned a lot about resilience and real community. If 4 or 5 people gather in a doorway and they start building a family around those people, which is what's been very difficult to them when they have to social isolate. So I learn a lot. I've learned a lot about the resilience of people to cope with stuff, and there's too many stories to kind of go, oh, this one or that one, but some of the memories really the time, the logistics, the cooking, all that kind of stuff is quite hard. It takes quite a lot of planning, and we've got a method, and Fran is 100% helping me with all that kind of stuff. But the time when I'm happiest and most comfortable is when I'm out delivering. I've got the COVID sorted in my mind, the social distancing and how we do that. There wasn't a playbook for that. Right? The soup kitchen's closed. We had to figure it out. How are we going to social distance? And we're dealing with people on the street, right? And when you're dealing with people, you'll be familiar with this, when you're dealing with people with maybe addiction issues or whatever, protecting their own life or health or welfare isn't something which is foremost in their mind. And when you've got people who don't feel they have a lot to lose anyway, it's been very difficult to, and it's been more a case of they've been respecting that, what I'm asking them to do, not for them, but for me to say, yeah, okay, that's cool. So I've had to learn a whole new skill set about how you do that and how you build trust over time by delivering food and communicate with people and new contacts and new authorities and all these kind of things. It's kind of like all the skills I've acquired, all the things I've acquired over the years, 3 years in recruiting and communities and True and all that kind of stuff has kind of cascaded for this moment in time for me. And it's super interesting. But to say what's your memory, there's lots of them, and there's lots of things I have to learn, and there's lots of experts I have to go to who I've learned and who are becoming quite good friends that I have to ring regularly and say, just how do I deal with this situation? What do I, I've had to tell people street, for example, their grandparents have died, and break news to people on the street, deal with stuff, and communicate messages about what's going on with COVID, and people's parents contacting me about their kids, about things that are going on. So there's lots of things that I've had to learn on quite a raw, basic human level about people.
Yeah. I mean, how do you being a part of those kind of conversations and obviously the work that you're doing right now, the ability to give back, the ability, you're doing this in a COVID environment where obviously you're concerned about your own safety and having your own. So I'm sure there's a level of anxiety that's constant, around that. Like, how are you kind of managing to kind of practice self-care and take care of yourself?
There's two things, Mark, right? There's two things that I hear this said by, I don't like the wartime analogies, but I hear this said by, say, troops who are out in Afghanistan or things like that. One is you have to be aware and follow a process that you set for yourself. This isn't something you don't go to a boot camp to learn this stuff and you go off and do it. We've had to learn it as we go along. So I'm consciously, continuously following it. The really hard times have been like when I told the guy, had to tell the guy that his grandfather had died, and he, and obviously he had an emotional reaction of breaking down. I couldn't do the human thing and put a hand on him.
Yeah,
and it took every ounce of my thinking about the safety to say I can't do the thing which I most want to do at this time. Someone needing reassurance or comfort, or you're delivering bad news. You can't do what you would do as a human being. So you kind of have to have that constantly kind of just ingrained in your head. Every time you get out of the car, change your gloves, do your da-da-da, put people at social distance, try not to let people touch you. All those things have become second nature automatically. They're going to be quite hard to unlearn when it's okay, really, if I ever do. So they're also, I'll seem like the germaphobe seem like the sensible people in a minute. So all of that stuff has become second nature, really. But the actual risk you need to not think about, because if you and so the risk for me, because I'm out every day,
mm-hmm.
I think the risk feels much greater to people who've been isolated.
Yeah,
My family, for my kids, they're quite worried about it, about this, because I'm taking the precaution and I'm out of it, and I've been out there every day when there's been different guidance and different guidelines. I don't think about it like, there's this risk. I just make sure I do everything I can to protect myself, and I don't really think about that stuff in the same way as I never feel in any threat or danger talking to addicts or going into subways or going into places where I would have been terrified to go 3 months ago.
Right.
Environments
I can see, like, obviously when you're in it and you're cooking food and you're delivering food and you're having the conversations and you're, connecting the dots for the people who need it, you have your safety protocols that you're following, like you said, and then when you're in it, you're focused, you're present in all those moments. When you're home, it's the end of the day and like the work is done, and maybe you've seen some difficult things that day. Like, is that, do you have moments there where you kind of allow yourself to just experience what comes from that, able to then kind of I guess absorb that and feel that a bit more?
There's the emotional stuff where sometimes you have to come home and be upset about something that's happened that you can't deal with in a day. There's a bit of that, and we've had a death on the street of one of the people I was feeding and watched them over 4 or 5 weeks deteriorate, all that kind of stuff. So there's emotional stuff that I have to, but I call it my decompression hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Once a week, I join Jerry Crispin and some people on an Italian cooking show, and and I haven't been drinking at all for 8 weeks, really, because I've been driving in the evening, so I haven't had a drink, which you'll know is quite an unusual thing for me. I've lost about 2 stone in weight because I've been exercising and not drinking, and grabbing meals on a functional basis rather than sit down and eat. So I've not been doing that stuff. And Frankie, one of the kids, will come and see me at 1, and we'll sit down and just have a little chat about the day. So what I need is kind of that decompression time. There have been times where it's been 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and fortunately I have a global network, so I'll ring someone in Australia who I know is awake.
Yeah,
I know people who love different time zones, so if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I can usually find someone on Messenger and just give them a call and try and have a normal world conversation about something. I read your paper or I saw some stuff, because the other thing that's been really, I've kind of had the opposite lockdown experience to everybody else. So everyone in my feed, they've been locked down with their family, and I think for the most part, have really enjoyed that experience. Will find it quite hard to come out of that. Not traveling, not doing conferences, being with your family, having to invent ways to entertain your kids or educate them, and spend real time with them. Probably, which you'll never do. You'll never have that amount of time available again with because by the time you do, they won't be kids anymore, right? If I'm thinking about your case, or done lots of work on the house, or done things, or learned to make bread, or do all kinds of different things. And so I've been quite envious watching all the pictures of what people are doing and thinking, I'm not, but I'd still rather be doing what I'm doing. I'd still rather be out there and doing something and have some purpose to what I'm doing. So I think my whole COVID experience has been the opposite of pretty much everybody that I know. Not just in the extreme, but the fact that I've had to be out. My biggest conscious thing is I think it's had the biggest impact on my family. My kids are, quite a frightening time for them that I'm going out of the house, and I'm going out every day, and I'm out in the community. And when you don't have anything but the news to get a sense or a fear of what's going on, when you're not out there, you imagine it much worse than it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, I just have to say,
I just need that time to decompress.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're getting some time, and I just want to say it's been impressive just to watch your work and to see how you've rallied the whole community around supporting your efforts. But really, it's your efforts. Like you're putting yourself out there, you're putting in the work, and it's I tip my hat to you. It's incredible to watch you you kind of broaden this area. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And just quickly, before
I promise you, Lars, this is a privilege and an opportunity that I'm not going to have again. So this is as much me taking out of that in terms of what I'm learning and what I'm doing as it is great philanthropic stuff or anything like that. This is an experience which is going to serve my career and the work that I do when I get back really well.
I mean, I know you and I believe that, but I think it also, a lot of people have ideas to do things like that and don't act on that, and you have. Just quickly, before we wrap up, if any of the viewers want to support any of your efforts with the Rough Sleepers, how can they do so? What's the best way?
So the best thing is Facebook, right? So the charity is Project 1615, but really just follow me on Facebook, send me a message. I pick all my messages up in Messenger. That's the best place to reach me. I'll tell you every day what's going on and what I need. If anyone wants to help, please come and do so. Sorry about Gus. I hope you can hear that.
No, it's all good. Hey, man, this is the beautiful thing of COVID times is there are no distractions in the room anymore. I think nobody even pays attention. It's just this is how stuff that's happening, and that's how
life is. That's cool.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. Thanks for all your work. And hopefully, if you're watching this, again, connect with him on Facebook, Bill Boorman, and support his efforts. He's doing a tremendous thing, and just definitely want to recognize that. And thank you for your work, Bill.
Thank you, Lars.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Hopefully, I will see you at a conference before 2023.
Peace out, brother.
See you, bud.